Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome to today. Is interesting discussion. I'm privileged to have one of the young brains of this country, an intelligent young man, and I use that word sparingly. Rarely will I call someone intelligent if they don't profess that intelligence. We're going to discuss quite a number of things, and I want him to be as confident and as comfortable as he can possibly be. And we're going to discuss something in respect to artificial intelligence and related issues, because that is the ambit under which he comes or he operates most of the time. My brother Jonan Katende, please, you're welcome, and please introduce yourself and tell us what you do and basically a few of the things. Yes.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Katende Chonan. I am the business manager at Justice Chatbot Limited, an organization that believes in automation for fast and efficient service delivery, and hence creates a number of artificial intelligence based tools in the justice, e-commerce, health, and real estate sectors.
Wonderful. So I'm going to ask Mr. Katende quite a number of disturbing questions. We are now coming into this new area called Chat GPT, but mostly robotics. I saw recently Justice Jidudu, I think, presenting a paper in respect to robotics. I tried to go through some of the things that we're trying to discuss, and man, I was like, okay, no comment. But but you see, what people forget is that when you're discussing things to do with AI, especially artificial intelligence, robotics, Chat GPT, and the likes, you are not. People look at it as on the surface view of it, without really comprehending the depth at which AI can actually be relevant, or is already relevant, in terms of what it can do for us. Mr. Katende, in one word, if someone asks you what is AI, what is robotics, what would you say? Because now we're beginning again. I know we've had this discussion before, but it is important to give us a preamble of sorts.
Yes, you said in one word, but I'll do it in a simplified sentence. Artificial intelligence is generally the ability of a computer to perform tasks that are usually limited to the domain of human beings. So in other words, a computer having the displaying intelligence of humans in the execution of tasks.
Okay, artificial intelligence basically is a machine, is that right?
Okay, maybe we can personify it to that extent. It's more like a computer system. It can be a computer persona, you understand, whatever you want to call it, that you feed with a particular set of instructions, and then you better reach to perform a particular set of outcomes.
Okay, so you're talking about some sort of machine that has been embedded with algorithms, to use your phrase, and then they replicate these algorithms because they are trained to move in a certain pattern. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, if that's the way, are you not trying to say that this is something that is predictable? What is unique about AI? Because if I know, for example, that Mr. Katende's pattern, he wakes up every morning, he brushes his teeth, he wakes up at 6, brushes his teeth, goes to the bathroom, blah, 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 and then I can replicate that pattern. Don't you think that it's going to be boring? These things are going to be predictable. What is unique about it that you think is going to do something that is over and above what a human being can do? That I started from there, because I would have started by saying, okay, tell me the premise of what they do, blah, 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 blah. But I know majority of our listeners probably know what AI is. But I want you to start from that premise where you're telling me, listen, Isaac, it's more than what meets the eye. It's something that is necessary, a necessary evil, for lack of a better word.
So I think I would respond by saying that, first of all, that the applications of artificial intelligence are quite wide and diverse. You have, in your submission, you've stated that there are certain routine tasks that human beings, for example, can do perform. It's like I wake up, I do this, I do this, I do that, I do that. But then you realize that most of the times in our routine tasks as humans, we tend to spend a lot of time sometimes than we should. So there is a leakage in terms of time, and then there are also quite a number of inaccuracies. If I tell you to produce the same piece of work every day at the same rate, at the same output, it is quite a tiring event, right? So sometimes you need a system that you can rely on that is fairly as intelligent as you are, or even better, that is going to execute at a higher output, at a very higher level of efficiency, while saving you time. And that is partly what artificial intelligence is able to achieve.
So, Mr. Katende, Jonan, you're telling me that the best of AI is to replicate, do something faster, because it is tasked or trained to do that particular job. Is that right?
Well, not exactly the best of it. There are some of the applications. I was telling you, for example, that you can use AI to automate routine tasks.
Right.
Instead of drafting a legal document every day, for example, AI can draft for you, can generate for you documents in seconds.
Okay.
You
So,
understand, huh?
Mr. Katende, before you finish, because you are an expert in this area, and that's why I want us to speak things that the ordinary mind wouldn't be so much bothered about anyway, to use that word sparingly. Because other than driving my automated car, for example, I mean, that's the best of robotics that we have now. You know, I ignite the engine and then it does the ABCD, right? Without engaging the gear. Tell me something over and above, convince me that, Isaac, AI is a force to reckon with. It's more than just a duplication of a pattern. That's what I want you to convince me.
So I'm going to convince you that given that we're talking to normal people, I'm going to use live normal examples so that people can actually get the reality of what we're talking about. I've given an example that AI can replicate patterns, it can automate patterns, but AI can also create its own patterns. In a sense, it can create its own patterns that were non-existent. I can tell you that they used ChatGPT recently to come up with a particular shape that was non-existent in history. For example, we know like a four-sided shape. That's a what?
A square or rectangle.
Then a five-sided shape. That's a what?
What do you call it? Hexagon, something like
pentagon.
that? Pentagon, right.
Then you have a hexagon. Then you have a heptagon.
Yes.
You know, all those kind of things.
Right.
But AI was able to generate a new shape, which was not in existence.
Okay.
We discussed last time about examples like in chess. There are now super engines like Stockfish 12, Stockfish 10 that find their own pattern on the chessboard and are able to create moves that no super grandmasters can understand.
Excellent.
I can also give you the final example of AI, the generative AI. Let's say like there is no poet in the world currently that can write a poem at the quality and the speed of ChatGPT. However good that person could be in a matter of seconds. Now, that is something that AI is doing, it is exhibiting, that supersedes the natural intelligence or the ability of just a single person in the context of generating content and information.
Now I get you here. Now, what Mr. Katende is saying is that other than the fact that these computers or machines are able to replicate and do generative tasks within a short limited of time, they can be also able to adapt or perhaps innovate their own unique creations, in the sense that they can be able to move at a speed that is much faster than what a human being could contain. Is that right?
Sure.
Okay, and that if that is the position, how far are we sure that AI is able to transcend in that direction? Because if, Mr. Katende, you're telling me that, okay, I have generated a chatbot, like to use your word, and your chatbot is going to generate algorithms that are going to be able, for example, in terms of legal, coming from the legal perspective, which I know you've done something to do with justice chatbot, to do what are those things called? Precedents or documents or draft pleadings and stuff like that. What else in the legal profession, and I'm sorry because I'm going to drive in the legal profession because I know that's where you also bear a lot of interest. You're even doing a survey right now, by the way, which you will explain to us. In the legal profession, what else do you think lawyers should look out for in AI?
So the applications of AI, like I want to say this again, are quite diverse. But like they say, that technology is not more important than the reasons as to why it is created. So in other words, there is a use case scenario, there is a need, and then you use technology as an enabler to solve that need. Now, I will first tackle that question from the perspective of products to market fit or problem to solution fit, that there are needs in the justice, law and other sector that we can use technology to solve. And if you gave me an example of a particular need, I could actually articulate how we could use AI to actually solve such a problem. But I'll give you an example of some of the problems that I've come across personally. There are challenges to do with, for example, currently in Uganda, case backlog. And it takes a long time for cases to be resolved. It takes a long time for you as a lawyer to do legal research. It takes a long time even for the judge to read through lots of precedents and kind of decide on the case. But you could actually use an AI tool to simplify all that information and solve the case backlog issues. And this is currently happening in Estonia, and there's a company called Blue in Canada that is also doing it. You simply get all the different cases about that particular issue, you put them in a database, and then the AI system will be able to tell which direction the lawyer should take and which verdict the judge should give based on the particular precedents that are embedded within the data and the existing system.
Excellent.
So we're looking here at the ability of AI to predict the case outcome and to save the lawyer's time and to tell him, you know what, Isaac, you don't need to do litigation here, and to save the client's time for him to know where he stands in the context of the law as far as their issue is concerned.
Excellent. So ideally,
that's just one of the use cases.
Absolutely. And I'm going to in my book, The Future Lawyer, I spoke about that even in China, where actually the Chinese tested the AI in terms of actually adjudication of matters, where matters were presided over by AI robotics in terms of judicial, and they're taking decisions at a faster rate. And then there's this other AI, which the English AI, the robotics that started with charging tickets. It's called do not pay. You know that AI, the do not pay, which was sued by the American firm for holding out to be the first robotic lawyer to practice law without a license. So I'm looking at that in terms of the prospect of the legal profession. I know it looks far-fetched, but I think the better perspective of it that Mr. Katende is arguing here is the ability to be able to comprehend and accommodate this massive lot of information that would be replicated over a period of time, and these machines can be able to do it in a short time possible. But also, perhaps what Mr. Katende should emphasize for us is the ability for AI to adapt. Mr. Katende, I know you know what I'm talking about. I'll ask the AI, and the AI has been embedded with the capacity to know and comprehend and learn on the game, to use that word loosely. Can you explain something about that?
Yeah, that's called reinforcement learning.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
The fact that every time you interact with a computer or a machine, it actually gets better. And that is also embedded with ChatGPT currently. Every time you have a conversation with it, it uses this data to make itself better. Because AI systems and tools function at the mercy of data. So the more data they are fed, it's the more better they actually perform, which poses a risk. You know, if they're fed with the wrong information, you're able to actually affect civilizations.
Absolutely. And that's the other danger that I was going to point out, because I've engaged with AI, I've engaged with ChatGPT for some time, and I've known its strengths and weaknesses. And I would argue that, you could correct me, one of the biggest shortcomings that I've identified with AI is that in spite of its ability to co-opt and adapt and move at a supersonic speed, to use that word loosely, if it is fed with the wrong information, then there's ability for it to pass over that information you know, and if you're not careful enough, then you will assume that that is the right information. I'll give an example. In Africa, and I'm going to argue this as an African, as a person who doesn't believe in certain aspects, I asked AI to tell me something of the recent decision of homosexuality. And I told AI, give me the proper position as far as jurisprudence of AI of homosexuality was concerned in Uganda. And it technically denied and brought in an aspect and said, there is no proper legal position on that. Even if there were, it is a human right, should be protected by blah, blah, blah. So I twisted the question because I was like, listen, my friend, you know, AI is so interactive that you can actually, it's much better than what you guys waste time with what? WhatsApp and stuff. It's more like you're talking to a human being, really. You know, you're having interaction. You can even say, good morning, my friend. Actually, call it good morning, my friend. Said, well, I'm not a human being. You can call me so and so. But some of the corrections, perhaps I would like, because I'm going to ask you so many questions. Some of the questions I'm going to ask you is this ChatGPT thing that seems to be the fire around. When I asked it in the book, because one of my last chapter in the book is, thank God I'm human. Because I asked it and said, do you envisage a time when machines are going to overtake humanity? It still dodged that question and said, listen, it's not a question of competition between humanity and whatever. We are aids, we are, you know what, complementaries. We're supposed to work. Then I told you, who are you? I said, I am made by my advisors and whatever, generators. And I said, who are they? And told me it was Elon Musk and some other guy. Okay, but bring me to speed with as far as ChatGPT, as far as ownership is concerned, and the magic question now, the difference between ChatGPT 3 that we're using and ChatGPT 4 that now is premier, right? Is probably restricted. And then tell me also what Elon Musk brought out recently when he brought the robotics and said you can have an intimate relationship with these robotics. Casual, even sexual, they say. Mr. IT man, Katende the Incredible, demystify for me the concepts of artificial intelligence, sir.
You've quite mixed in a lot of questions,
yes,
but I'll see how to best respond to each one. Now, you brought in the aspect of, first of all, the risk of AI, and then you have intertwined that a little bit with major advancements that are happening in the AI field. So I'll first talk of the risk bit. I've told you that AI relies a lot on data because you use this data to train very large language models. These models become better when they start giving you a very clear output, a better output.
Yes.
But this output is sometimes based on the information that has been fed to them.
Absolutely.
You've mentioned about Elon Musk, and Elon Musk started OpenAI, which is the company that produced ChatGPT. Elon Musk stated that he started this company after feeling that AI is quite dangerous, but the company which was monopolizing over 80% of AI infrastructure, which was Google, in his opinion, was not taking AI safety very seriously. He was a good friend to Larry Page, part of the guys who started Google, and they had conversations. They were like, well, you know what, I think you guys should take AI safety a little bit more serious. But Larry Page called him a specialist, someone that is overly conscious of human life. Larry Page envisioned a concept of a digital god, making Google a digital god, in which case we would have consciousness of not only human beings, but also of digital technology. Because of that, Elon Musk decided, because actually Google at the time also had DeepMind, which is currently, I think, the strongest competitor to OpenAI. So Elon Musk felt that there had to be a creation of a company that was first of all transparent, that was first of all non-profit, but with certain kinds of geniuses, so that it could create groundbreaking technologies, but that are in the light, hence the name OpenAI and its creation. Okay. So when OpenAI was created, Elon Musk stated that he helped found the founding team, things like that, the first team that was running OpenAI, and much of its projects have actually been open source. Like you've mentioned, GPT-3, it came out around 2019, 2019 or 2020. GPT-3, which was used a lot by many companies to create chatbots.
Yes.
Now, it also has, apart from releasing ChatGPT, which is a recent release, it also has other models, speech, because ChatGPT is under conversational AI. Then you have speech recognition models like Whisper. So OpenAI has been doing a lot of groundbreaking technologies. However, the release of ChatGPT came with some strong investment from Microsoft, which injected in over $1 billion US. And currently, Microsoft literally controls much of what is happening at OpenAI.
Okay.
Now, GPT-3 is technology that would be used to create chatbots, to do quite a lot of other things. But now, GPT-4, which is currently premier, is much more stronger. And Elon Musk and a few other guys came out actually raising concerns and stating that training of models beyond GPT-4 should be stopped because of the safety concerns. I mean, like you have highlighted already, that you also got some kind of biased responses from ChatGPT. Just imagine what would happen if an entire generation relies on ChatGPT as a source of information, and yet it is systemically biased. I mean, you tell it to generate a joke about a boy, it will generate one in a matter of seconds. You tell it to generate a joke about a lady, it will not generate one. It would consider it some kind of hate speech or sexism, something like that. So if you have a system that is being relied on as a source of information, but it is politically correct, then that essentially means that it's going to affect how an entire generation looks at and perceives truth.
Sure.
Because in my opinion, the truth, one of the highest principal values of a society is truth. And if someone is successful at redefining for us what to believe or what to perceive as truth, then those have been successful at redefining for us how to think, how to live life, and there will be an entire change across civilizations. So the weakness or the limitation of ChatGPT and the related technologies is partly because part of the data that they are used to train them is problematic to particular schools of thought,
Sure.
to particular people.
Sure.
And yeah, that is partly where the risk lies. Also, ChatGPT was the free version. It's relying on data that is as up to the date of
2021, I think.
2021 September.
Yeah.
Now that means that it is not up to date currently.
Yes.
With the latest information, which limits its accuracy and the fact that it doesn't know events. It doesn't have knowledge of events beyond 2021. Now GPT-4 is a little bit more up to date because the training is always happening. Yeah, but it is also facing a competitor from Google because Google released a new generative AI model as well called BARD. BARD. So previously Google was using, in 2017 it was using an algorithm, a natural language processing algorithm called RankBrain. Now that, which it was using to rank websites and to give you information depending on what you're searching for. Then from RankBrain they moved to BERT, and then by directional encoder, whatever transmitters. Then after the release of ChatGPT, they have now released BARD, which is a little bit different from ChatGPT. Now ChatGPT is stronger in terms of its contextualization of things, but one of the advantages of BARD is that it connects live to the internet, so you're able to put in a link, let's say like sugenerist.com, then you tell BARD to summarize for you that web page, and it will do that for you. It's live.
Okay.
Which Microsoft also tried to attain by incorporating ChatGPT with Bing.
Yes, Bing. That's what I was going to tell you.
To form Bing Chat.
Which Bing Chat now, when you access it, it tells you Microsoft has purchased us. We don't have access to that anymore. So what do they mean by that?
They tell you what?
When you try to go to Bing now,
Yeah.
to access it and use those provisions, it tells you now we don't have that anymore because Microsoft has taken over.
Yeah, but still Microsoft owns Bing. Yeah? It's just that previously, when they had just released it out, you had to have a waiting list. They had a waiting list. You had to be on the waiting list, and people were running to alternative. One of the advantages of Bing Chat at the time is that it could actually generate some kind of references.
That's true.
Just like Jasper Chat, it's also like an AI tool would do.
Okay.
Yeah, but right now I think the waiting list has been removed. I'm not a very huge fan of Bing, but at least that was one of the only ways of accessing a more updated version of ChatGPT. So GPT-4 is premium. It is one of the advantages is that you can access the API. How would I explain that? So it's more like you can have access to the data of ChatGPT and use it, customize it to build your own tool.
Wow.
It's more like incorporating ChatGPT with your already existing solution. So you can, the fact that ChatGPT is a fairly strong model, it's actually a very strong model. Some people have now got its functionalities, customized it, for example, and created chatbots that are business specific.
Right.
In other words, this particular chatbot can negotiate with clients, something like that, and it is specific to that. But it is running on the intelligence of GPT-4.
Okay.
Now, those are some of the advantages that you actually get.
What are the challenges? Because sometimes I've engaged ChatGPT, for example, and then when you ask it a particular question, even when it prays ignorance and says, listen, my information is limited as far as September 2021, when you probe it more, then it kind of generates. Because the instance when I've asked it, tell me about this case, it's like, I don't have ability, you can still go to Yuri or to blah, blah, blah. Then you say, but let's be serious, go deeper. Then it brings the information all of a sudden. I discovered the trick about, and I think that's ignorance. Most people think that GPT is simply writing a love letter to a girl to blow off her feet, and stuff like that. But I discovered that the more innovative you are, and I think that's where the uniqueness of humanity comes, and that's where my last chapter comes when it comes to the book of future lawyer, resolving puzzles and criminal and civil puzzles, is the ability for a human being to adapt, I think, and to what? What's the word? To change with changing environment, which I think, although these new robotics will have that ability to co-opt and adapt, but I think they're going to be limited, in my opinion, to certain restrictions of not even human, but human, for lack of a better word. What do you say about that?
As far as the limitations of AI are concerned,
yes.
Well, currently, with the power of AI and the possibility of quantum computing, quantum computing is all about partly the ability for us to train very strong models in a matter of seconds. So you have terabytes of data, exabytes of data that would have taken you years, but now you can train this model in a matter of seconds, in a matter of hours or minutes, and it is now much more accurate, much more stronger. So the possibilities of AI are quite limitless. In fact, people are worried. That is why people like Elon Musk are worried, and he's talking about creating a company like Truth GPT.
Oh.
Yeah, whereby things will be a little bit more transparent, and they're signing a certain kind of document that is stopping training beyond GPT-4. The CEO of ChatGPT, of OpenAI, has recently been before Congress answering questions, and he also stated that there are kind of risks. There are risks that are associated with AI. So part of Elon Musk's worries is the fact that AI has the ability to go beyond control. The fact that
is that probable? let's pursue that. Is that probable? Because I don't see how probable that is.
It is probable.
How?
In a sense that if already Stockfish 12 can create patterns that a collection of super grandmasters cannot create, that means that it has now ideally become much more stronger than all of them combined.
Yes, but
now
being stronger than me...
Yeah, let me come.
Yes.
Now, imagine a situation in which an AI engine has become stronger in intelligence and in thought, and you try to write certain codes or algorithms to control it, and it's not heeding to your commands. You still have an option of probably switching off infrastructure in which those commands flow. That's one of the few options that you have. But at a much more probable level, if you imagine the utopia in which there was an unlimited showcase of power by AI, we cannot really. It's indescribable. It can do a lot.
Mr. Katende, Jonan, are you telling me that these movies like iRobots and what's the thing for Schwarzenegger? What was that movie? Terminator is a reality? Let's be serious. Because are we saying the world's going to be taken over by machines?
I'm saying that it is not a reality currently, but it is a possibility.
Because when I asked AI and told him, is there a time when you guys are going to overturn and take over the world? They said, that's not a question of debate, because it shouldn't be feared in any way. I asked it, why do you think you should offend us? We are afraid because you are now able to, think faster than I. He says, yes, but because you give me the commands. And those commands are limited to perhaps the best genius who gave me those commands. And I said, okay, what happens? And then he said there are ethical concerns also. Perhaps that's the idea of what Elon Musk is trying to raise. He said there will be ethical concerns that these guys who are probably feeding us with the information will be subjected to certain ideologies or legal regulations that wouldn't entail us to do that. Then I asked it, and this was the magical question. Do you have a soul? Do you have a spirit? Because now you're not talking like a human being. Before I even give you my answer, what's your answer, sir, Mr. Katende, as an expert in this field?
Well, the idea of souls is quite a very interesting phenomenon. In fact, the discussion of souls has been as old as the universe to some extent, from a religious perspective. But from a scientific perspective, it has been also quite fascinating. I remember in 1901 there was a scientist called Duncan who felt that he was a religious guy, but he was also a scientist, and he believed in the idea of souls. He stated that if a soul exists in the human body, then that means that it has a mass that can be measured. The paradox then was that how do you first of all measure a soul, the mass of the soul? But then if you're able to come across a soul, then you don't need to measure it because you've already been able to tell that it exists. So he thought through a little bit more efficiently, and he said, okay, that if souls exist, that means that if someone dies, the body remains, the soul is gone. So he looked for people to measure at a weighing scale to see whether there would be a reduction in weight at the point of death.
Wow.
Fortunately for him, tuberculosis had ravaged many parts of United States of America at the time, and he managed to come across some 4 patients that were willing to take part of the experiment. Some of them, then 2 other guys that were suffering from other illnesses, but were closer to their death.
Yes.
And it so happened that on one fortunate day, there was this guy who was partly just about to die. He was put on the...
Just 1 minute. Battery. Okay, we can continue, yes.
Yeah, he was put on the scale, and the scale reduced by some grams.
Wow.
So Duncan was quite fascinated. The only challenge is that the other experiments with six other people didn't go so well. Some reduced, some increased in weight.
Oh, so the debate was lost.
The debate was lost.
Okay.
However, much of science agrees that whereas it cannot dispute the idea of souls. You know, science so often has there is a concept called scientific anti-realism, but it agrees that the concept of consciousness, the fact that I'm aware that I am resident in my body, is a little bit appalling. It cannot be explained. So that is as far as science can go. Consciousness, self-awareness is still a very huge problem. However, recently, quantum physicists came out and told us that, well, there is probability some research. Actually, some research was even published this week that there is evidence that probably our beings go into a certain other universe after this world.
Whoa.
Yeah, but that is as far as science is concerned. Now, as a religious person,
who you are,
which I am, I strongly believe that souls are limited to the domain of God. Now, AI, let's say, like assuming a soul, it would be more like it's just like how you connect consciousness to the soul. It's the same idea that AI runs through a series of neural networks, just like we have neurons as human beings.
Yes.
So those neural networks coordinate information, and those would be like the perception or the consciousness of a machine.
Okay.
But the idea of attaining a soul is quite improbable. There are just the instances that happen, like for example last year this Google engineer, we discussed in one of the earlier episodes, who was very afraid when he felt that the chatbot he was training, LAMDA, was starting to describe, was starting to
show emotions.
To show emotions and sentient things like that. He was very terrified, actually. In his own words, he said that if he didn't know that this was a machine, he would refer to it as an 8-year-old that is actually discussing a lot of physics at a very much advanced level.
Wow.
So, and then of course showing signs of fear, things like that. So that is as far as the idea of consciousness in AI is concerned.
Excellent. That was Mr. Katende. Consider that episode 1. We're going to come back and Mr. Katende is going to take us through the fears of AI, the strength of AI, but more importantly, whether AI is an enemy of humanity or a friend of humanity. We will get back after this break.